Welcome to the Intentional Teacher Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Monique, and I am so excited because today we have a guest with us, and her name is Jaime. And I met Jaime through intentional teaching. She was a teacher in intentional teaching, and I am so excited that she agreed to come on the podcast because I think she has a lot of wisdom for you as the person listening, as the teacher listening to this episode, because Jaime has had some really tough teaching gigs. We'll just call it like that.
That's so true.
So true. And so I think she'll have a lot to share. And she just has a beautiful energy. So I'm thrilled to have you on today, Jaime. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, this is so cool. I love your podcast.
Oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. So why don't we get started? Tell us a little bit about who you are, and what you're teaching. So maybe what you started teaching and what you're teaching now.
Okay, so yeah, that's a fun story. So hi, I'm Jaime, and I live in Northern Ontario in Sudbury. I'm a French immersion teacher. In the board I grew up in as a French immersion student. So I think that's kind of cool. And the last 2 years, it's my fourth year permanent this year. Yeah. Yep. Fourth year permanent this year. And the last 2 years, 3 years I've been at the same school, but this year's a nice easy year compared to the last two, because the last 2 years I taught a 5-grade split class. I had grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 all together, our own little schoolhouse, for the last 2 years. This year we got reorganized in October, thank goodness, and now I'm just teaching my grade 7, 8 students. My grade 7s is the third year I've taught them, and I only have 14 kids in my class instead of 30. So I'm doing the happy dance. I'm living the life right now, but I've had 2 tough years.
Wow. Yeah, that is such a huge difference going from
So
having so many grades and 30 kids to now having 14. That's outrageous.
And 2, like complementary grades where the curriculum is close enough together that it's not totally different. Yeah, it's totally different. I can't, it's like way, way easier. I'm not stressed out this year.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's huge. So are they still because you're in the same school, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So how are they organizing the other groups? Are they like a 3-grade split for the other ones?
They are. So it is better than a 5-grade or 4-grade like I started off this year. So they're 4, 5, 6. There's 3 grade 4s in that class. They're a class of 18.
Yeah.
Which is better than the 30 that I had in the last 2 years. But they hired a new teacher to take them on. And then grades 1, 2, 3 are still the triple grade like they've always been. And then kindergarten's JK, SK. So our school wasn't meant to be a French immersion school. It was supposed to be English, not dual track. But a long time ago, like I don't even know how long before I even started teaching kind of thing, the parents had, I guess, pressured the board into making immersion at that school in that area. So that's why my situation was the way it was. So no, this is not a common thing in my city. It is a very unique situation and the only one in our school board like that.
Yeah. And it's like, are you in a small, is it a smaller area, like a smaller community? Is that why, or is it just like the luck of the draw with this particular school? Because I have heard of Sudbury, Ontario before I met you. Like, it's not that small.
Yeah. No, the city, we have a big city. I don't even know, because the French immersion school is not far from my school. So I teach in one of the communities like next to downtown. And so it is an inner city school. And then the French immersion school is also an inner city school, but it's not that far. So
yeah,
I'm not sure.
okay.
I'm not sure why. I guess I teach in a lower income area. So not a lot of our students have vehicles at home that their parents can drive them to school in and whatnot.
Right.
And so a lot of them live walking distance. Most of our kids are walkers.
Okay.
So
And
I
I
guess
wonder,
it's part of that. I don't know.
I think we'll definitely be talking to you because if you're listening and you're teaching a split, I know a lot of teachers find the splits really challenging. So you are now the split grade expert. So we'll definitely chat about that.
I don't know about that, but I'm a
She's like, I
split
don't know.
grade survivor.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And also another additional challenge is the like being in an inner city school because I have taught in inner city schools and it is super rewarding, but very like there's a whole extra challenge. So we'll definitely chat about that. But before we do, how about we kind of get into where you were at and before we met and before you joined intentional teaching, like what was it like to teach those 5 grades?
Chaos. Chaos, chaos, chaos. Um, I was in survival mode, just scraping by day, putting out fires. Because I mean, I had 5 years between my oldest and youngest students, right? So even just the maturity problems, or not problems, but like just the differences in reactions to certain things and them getting annoyed on one another. Like I had good groups, don't get me wrong, they were really, really great kids. But sometimes we had some days where just dumb things happened and it took all my time. And then planning every night for hours just for the next day, and then it not going as planned and having to totally change everything and then replanning again. And it was a lot. I
Yeah.
was working really late at night all the time and just like really not happy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can imagine the chaos because I even think between like 3 years, it's hard to understand like an older kid can get frustrated with a younger kid because they just don't have the understanding that the older child does.
Yeah.
But it's one thing to, see them at resets, and it's another thing to have them in your classroom all day in, day out. Like that must have been really frustrating for the older kids too.
Well, and the subject matter, right? Some conversations were between older kids that younger kids would overhear and then shouldn't have. Um, and like language, for example.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh,
at
yeah.
my school, the kids, the language at home is not school appropriate, and that's then they bring that with them, right? Naturally, if that's the language at home, that's what they're going to bring with them. And then so the younger one, right? So then it was the whole, we got to learn. So I had a lot. I spent most of my time, and like that whole first year, a lot of my time was on building community
Mhm.
and establishing like those expectations with them. And it took a while because of all those ages, and some got it, some really didn't, some didn't want to.
Yeah, totally. So that, yeah, chaos, like what an intense. I didn't even know that was possible in Canada because I'm from Canada too, and I've taught French immersion here. So what inspired you to join intentional teaching? What made you think like, okay, I'm going to try this then?
I say I can't. I always forget how I got. I think it was an email. I
Mhm.
don't know. All I know is I do remember printing out your intentional 10 freebie.
Yeah.
I must have, I can't remember. I remember you remembered how I joined one time when we talked in one of our classes, and I can't even remember now, but a lot has happened since. So
A lot has
um,
happened since.
I don't
Well,
remember. I remember I was lost. I knew I wanted help. And when I saw that email or you messaged me, I really can't remember. But I printed that out and I thought, this sounds interesting. I responded to an email saying, like, yeah, I was kind of curious to hear about it. You answered me back, asked me about my teaching, and then I told you I had 5 grades. And then we started chatting. um,
totally.
it was a very intriguing point.
Yeah.
um, but I needed help with uh, finding kind of my footing, I guess, is kind of really what the problem was. I walked in, I mean, I've got my notes from round 1 and round 2 because I did 2 rounds of it, which is super beneficial. My beginning notes were just planning, 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 planning. Planning was the goal. I was sick of planning for 3 hours a night at home every day,
Mhm.
staying up till like 11 or past 11 because I mean, obviously I wanted to hang out with my partner Eric, and then he'd go to bed and then I'd get to work.
Oh,
So like, we don't have
yeah.
kids, but I was tired anyway
Oh
because
my gosh, but
working.
like Kids at school are so tiring. Like I
Yeah.
kind of got that before I had my own kids, but when I had my own kids, I was like, no wonder we're so tired as teachers because kids are kids. I love them, but they're
They're
exhausting.
exhausting, but I love them
They're
too. But they're
exhausting.
exhausting.
They're exhausting.
They're a lot.
They they are a lot, right? Okay, so you started off with your planning, and then
Mhm.
yeah, like let's talk a little bit about that. Like what was possible for you once you started kind of streamlining a bit of your planning and looking at how you were planning and treating your evenings differently.
So the before and after this really awesome. The before was hours of work looking for resources, racking my brain for what to do and typing it. Well, not I typed it up short way for me anyway, so like that was never an issue, but just hours and hours getting it ready. And then to after the 2 rounds of teaching, once I got some strategies that we can like I'll talk about too, but now I spend maybe a half hour max to look at it, 10 minutes, take a quick peek, then I'm ready to go. And then I get to do things I want, like play video games with my sister who lives out of town and chat with her and my mom on the phone, so we have a whole family meeting video game night.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. I love it. I
Yeah.
I love hearing what people do with their time afterwards. Like that is so fun. I love that you play video games. Like my
Yeah, I'm a big kid. I'm a huge kid, and I tell my class all the time, I'm like, I may look older, I don't act my age.
my husband, like we went to a wedding recently for one of his best friends that he's known since university. And they, even though he lives in San Francisco, he works for Facebook now. Even though
Oh,
he lives in
cool.
San Francisco, they still stay in touch by playing video games together. So there
Right?
you
Like, I mean, if you can, and if it's something you like to do, why not? I
go.
mean,
Yeah,
I go with my dog now. We've had him for 2 years, so we got the big pooch, and so I get to walk him in. I get a lot more. I get more me time, and I feel less overwhelmed.
that's awesome.
That's the before and after.
So good. I love before and after stories. I'm sure if you're listening, I can't be the only one. I love before and after stories. So fun. So what do you think was like I know if you're listening, you might be thinking, okay, like I feel lost, or maybe you're feeling like the chaos in your classroom. If you had like one strategy that you would share or one tip that you would share with a teacher listening, what would you share? What would you recommend trying?
Oh,
Doesn't have to be
I
perfect,
don't
but
just
something
have
that came to
one. Okay, but so all right, my problem for me personally, and this might be some listeners as well, my prep times. By the time it came to prep, I was just zonked,
Mhm.
wiped out. I sat in my chair, I grabbed my phone because like what else am I gonna, and I scrolled through social media, which was super not helpful. I mean in
Big picture. Yeah.
yeah, back view or in, I can't think of the word right now, but
Hmm.
thinking about it now, that didn't help me, right? But
Yeah.
I didn't have the brain space to get planning done. And so and since when we started working together, then I kind of had, it was just that, it was the belief. You talk about beliefs. So my beliefs in me were I'm not good enough. I'm still too new of a teacher. I still kind of tell myself that, but like in a more positive way because I'm still new, so I'm still learning.
I'm
Um,
learning.
but I'm not ready, I'm not good enough, I'm too slow, I know I'm a procrastinator, so I kind of know that about myself.
Mhm.
And just changing that, going, okay, no, I can sit down, okay, I'm going to do this. It was deciding what to do, kind of, and you've mentioned in your other episodes too, knowing what direction you're going in. That kind of was one of those aha moments that I was like, oh, well, okay. So then I started using my prep times to prep. So then I could do the scrolling on socials at home instead of at school and then working at home. So that's kind of part of it. But another thing, but you say so many things in your intentional teaching that really were just like light bulb moments for me. Putting out your beta version, being
Yeah.
okay with not having it perfect. I compared myself, I had that imposter syndrome where, those Pinterest perfect or Instagram perfect classrooms. And, I mean, I know the reality is that's just a snippet of a great moment. I'm aware of this. However, the teachers down the hall, they got some really, really organized people up at my school who have beautiful, immaculate classrooms. Mine's got stuff everywhere. It's organized chaos because that is how I work. But and then everything's printed out, planned. They can, it just anyone can walk in and know what's up, right?
Mhm.
So I compared myself to those teachers, and that didn't help me at all. It made me feel pretty bad. So
Yeah,
knowing that it's okay to put something out, tweak it as you go when need be, and that's good enough. You're good enough. That was,
totally.
yeah, that's
I
good.
think that is such a powerful thing that you raise, because that was the thing. Like when I first started teaching it, I thought, oh, I'll just teach some planning strategies, I was honestly, one thing I was really afraid of teaching was grading and marking. I was like, oh, I don't think I'm a fast enough grader. And I talked to my husband. I'm like, what do you do to speed up your grading? Because my grading is not fast enough to teach this. Um, but I realized, I mean, I already had strategies between the two of us. We refined it and things. But I realized one of the biggest things, it wasn't like these hacks. Like I thought people needed hacks to speed things up or to make things simpler. But one of the biggest things I realized is what you brought up, is that it's actually our beliefs. And if you're new to me, a belief is basically a thought that you think over and over and over until it becomes a truth for you. But the tricky thing about a belief is that we don't know it's a belief. It seems like a fact. So, one belief that I hear a lot is I'm disorganized, or
Oh
I
yes,
don't,
that was me.
or I don't finish things, or I'm not a good enough teacher, or because I can't do X, I'm not good enough.
Right.
And it's like almost like if you imagine like like a record player and a record, it's like the more we think those thoughts, it's like the groove in the record gets deeper and deeper, and the thought just comes on this loop, and we don't realize it's a belief. And usually those beliefs happen from, I mean, especially ages 0 to 25, but even more like 0 to 7. So it could be this belief that you had that you picked up as a kid, and then you take into the classroom with you. And if you have a thought, kind of like, it's a little bit like growth mindset
Mm,
versus fixed mindset is an example of a
yeah.
belief. But if you have those thoughts going into something, you may have the strategy, how to do backwards design, for example. But if you're saying that you're not organized enough or you're not good enough, you might have all this mind chatter that gets in the way of even starting to get to your planning. So even if you know how, the belief can get in the way. So it's about getting awareness around those beliefs and starting to let them go. And that can make things so much faster and easier.
Yeah, that's what worked for me.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I
And
had that. I'm still. I mean, I say I'm still disorganized. I am way more organized than I was 2 years ago. I've
mhm,
got drawers and labels, and I know where to find things. And kids know where to find papers when they're away now. Whereas before it was like, oh, where's that photocopy?
mhm.
Um, but yeah, knowing that it's something I'm telling myself, right? I can change it, right? And I like that, yeah, growth mindset. So I teach that to my class too all the time. I said, okay, we take that negative, we can go neutral because positive might be too much for you to do right now,
Oh my
right?
gosh, that's so good. That's so
I'm
good.
disorganized, or we can go, okay, well, I'm learning new strategies, so this part's organized, but maybe I still need to work on this. So I'm neutral. I'm like okay with it, and then I'd be like, okay, well, now I'm an organized person, right? But that could take time. So I teach that to I have intermediates now, right? So now there's a lot of like, here's the real talk, guys. Um, here's life for you. And I kind of share these little nuggets that I hope they take with them. I've been doing that the
Oh,
last 3 years with them anyway. So by the time they're done with me, they'll be like, my teacher taught me this.
oh my gosh, I just got chills because yesterday I was away at a conference with a bunch of coaches who teach all different sorts of things, but mindset's a huge part of what we talk about. And I had this like vision of I'd love to create one day like a nonprofit that
Mhm.
has people go into schools to teach like intermediate and high school students about the power of beliefs and
Oh, that
changing
would
their
be
thoughts,
so
and just
cool.
like that little like nugget so they can start to see that it's not necessarily reality. And I'm
Yeah.
just so excited that you're already doing that. That's so cool. I literally had the idea yesterday and you're
Oh my
already doing
gosh, see, great minds.
so good, so good. Um, and one thing I wanted to highlight about what Jamie said for you listening is maybe you're starting to think like, oh, that's me. I think I'm not organized or I'm not good enough or it needs to be perfect. Or you're starting to maybe, if you're starting to notice, and you can just hear, like if you start to observe your thoughts and start to listen to what your thoughts are, that's it's easier, of course, when you talk to somebody else, but sometimes you can start to observe your own thoughts and notice a belief you might have. And Jamie had such a great clear way that she is teaching that you can even teach your students this. But like you said, it's sometimes difficult to go from a negative to a positive. So it's about going from a negative to a neutral to a positive. So I'm disorganized. Then we go, I am learning to become organized, or I'm not as organized as I want to be yet, or some sort of neutral. And usually it's around something around like learning, like it's okay to be a learning
Yeah.
before we go to I'm organized. So that was a great one. Thank you for that quick strategy. That was awesome.
Yeah, well, I worked with the kids where the example was, "Oh, I'm going to fail this test." Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's negative, right? So I said, "Well, don't go like I'm gonna pass it," because then they're 12 now, so they're too cool for everything. So I'm like, that's too much for you to go, because at my school too, we have a lot of trauma in their past, right? These kids are coming to school. Some of them had no breakfast because there's no food at home. We pack lunches at school for kids every day. So, I mean, they show up. Being positive sometimes for them is not something that comes easily to them. So, right. So I really try and force that, like, okay, I'm not going to fail this test. Right. I'm going to fail this test. No. Um, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
study for this test and make sure I know, this portion. And then we can move to like, I passed the test. Yay.
Yeah, because it's really about like our language creates a reality. So when we can help them let go of I'm going to fail this test,
Mhm.
because that belief will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I love that you're teaching them like different ways so they're not seeing it as like this is absolute truth, but I can affect my reality through that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Or that I'm too dumb to do this. Not true.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Actually, on that topic, I was talking with one of my clients recently, and as we got off the phone, I'm gonna actually have to talk to her about this. It dawned on me like, oh my gosh, she's in a low income school. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
didn't hit me. I'm like, that's why she's having so many behavior challenges. And
Hmm.
if you've never taught in a low income or inner city or like underprivileged area, it's a whole learning curve. So I'd love to hear from you, seeing as you've worked with kids in that situation for 3 years.
Yeah.
If a teacher is new to a situation like that, like I can think of so many challenges I had when I worked at an inner city school. Do you have anything that's like what would you say to a new teacher in that situation? Do you have any like words of encouragement or an idea that's worked for you? What would you say to a
Well,
new
the
teacher?
yeah, the teacher who they hired to take the other half of my class is new. Like it's her
Mhm.
second year. She got hired permanent last year at one of our French immersion schools that they closed three schools to turn them to a super school. So we
Right.
have so she got surplused and then ended up at a different school, and then that didn't work out either because their numbers changed, and then got booted to our school. I say booted because she didn't apply to this job, right? She was
You
kind of
just got floated over.
this is where you are because you're low on the seniority list, and this is so she's new, and she worked at a school that was a opposite to my school.
Hmm.
Well, a good neighborhood, families are, like they pay for their field trips to go
Yeah.
because they can. Whereas, so I said it was a culture shock the first time I got there too at my school. The
Hmm.
things you hear, the way the kids speak, even, and like it's just a regular day when someone got arrested next door, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh,
Oh
like
yeah.
this is your normal, and I'm freaking out. So definitely a culture shock. So you are going to go through a OMG what am I going to do? But like you said, it's so rewarding too when you get to know these kids and they open up to you. Like schools, for a lot of them, is their safe space, which is
Yeah.
then why we see these behaviors sometimes, right? Because when you're with your safe person, or like, well, that's why most little kids have a tantrum when they're with mom,
Yeah.
right? Mom's their person most of the time,
Oh, let me
right?
tell you, that is absolutely 100% true.
Right. I've seen
Yes.
it with my friends.
Yes.
Um, I've seen it with when I did kindergarten a lot, right? Parents would ask me if their kid was kicking us at school, and I thought, "Your child? Are you kidding? She's an angel."
Yeah.
But at home, no, 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 that wasn't the case,
Yeah.
because home's the safe place, right? They keep it together and then they lose it after.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
school, we have the opposite, where a lot of them are want to come because they like it at school and they feel good. So um for starting out, yeah, get to know them, feel the feelings. Some stories you're gonna hear, they're really gonna hurt your heart or pull on your heartstrings. Know that you can only do so much, and obviously we can't fix all the things that you may hear. My admin at my school at all, like 3 years, have been amazing. I love them. So I really went to them a lot for support in certain things. If a student shared something, I went, oh my gosh, okay, no, I can't do this alone. I need help.
Hmm.
Lean on your colleagues. I'm sure everyone at your school, and I heard this reputation with this school. Like when I first got told I was going to that school, I had that feeling like, oh no, because you hear stories, right? All the teachers at
Hmm.
the other schools are, oh my God, that school, this, that, this, that. But then when I joined that staff meeting at the end of the school year to introduce, here's the new staff who's joining us, because it was COVID year, of course, too.
Hmm.
So it was
Just to add
all
another little
virtual. Like
challenge for
my
you.
whole start in permanent teaching has been a wild ride. I
Yeah.
didn't get my NTIP, like teacher induction program training. It was COVID, it got canceled. So everything was kind of all on my own.
Mhm.
But and everyone was talking, and the ones that were leaving were crying that they were leaving the school because they love it so much. So the staff
Oh.
at your school, in a school, a lower income community school, the staff is a different breed of people. It's just
Mhm.
a different feel in the building. Everyone's there for everyone. Like, let me know if you need help, anything I can do to help you out. Like, a lot of them were like, you've got 5 grades. If there's anything I can do, please tell me.
Yeah.
So,
That's
lean on your people. That's
mhm.
And then do your self-care too, right? Do the
Oh,
things you love. Right? If
that
you
is
like to go for a run, or you like to, like, Eric and we have our own gym in the basement, right? When COVID hit, we bought all the things, and now we have a whole setup downstairs. So we got, that's an outlet for us too. Video games. I play video games. I find that relaxing. I paint my nails every Sunday night to have a new manicure every week. So yeah, do the things you like, and ask for help when you need it, because it'll be there for you.
I love that point. I didn't know what you were going to say, honestly. And I was
I
like,
didn't
we'll
either.
see.
It kind of came to me.
Kind of came right. But I'm thinking back to when I worked at I mean, I've had like a variety of different schools, but I had one that was particularly low income. And this was even before I became a teacher. I was a youth worker in schools.
Oh,
And so I had all the challenging kids came to me.
all the
Um,
things.
and I would say that staff was it was like we were all united against a common challenge, not the kids, but like that they were
Oh, yeah.
in a challenging situation.
Mhm.
And it really brought everyone together. And I love that point about like lean on the staff, because the people who stay are the people who really like are super, super caring. And it really brings like, I've been on staff where, like people didn't know each other, or it just wasn't that sense of community that you have in a more challenging school situation, because it brings people together. So I love that. That's such a great point. So good.
Yeah.
um well, I can't end this episode, Jamie, without one, I guess, idea or survival mode strategy for teaching multiple grades, because I hear from dozens of teachers every week that that is the thing that really is stressful for them, is, and if you're listening, maybe this is you, is having more than one grade in a class. So if you have something that like something that's worked for you, or even like a mindset shift around how you saw split grades, yeah, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Oh, I know that's a tough one too, because even to answer that is tricky because I did what I did to make it, I guess. So, I mean, for younger split grades, like the 1, 2, 3, I don't know how that lady does it. I certainly don't want her job.
Neither do
But
I.
because I mean, the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8s, at least, I mean, they're more self-sufficient than let's say 1, 2, 3 can be. So, what I did was kind of teach like for French. I mean, I wasn't going to do, nor could I even imagine getting it done successfully, make 5 lesson plans, one for each grade.
Yeah.
There is no way. You'd never get through it. Anyways, I have an hour for French, they have an hour of English, and then we've got all those other minutes that we have to hit throughout the year and throughout the day. So what I tended to do was teach the main, let's say like we were doing grammar. So I would teach the present tense and we'd work on it together, all as a group. And then I would expect different levels of work. So even for writing, like grade 8s, I expected them to be able to write me at least 8 sentences, one for each of their grade years, right? But the fourth graders needed to get a maximum of 4, right? So I kind of I used my professional judgment to dictate kind of what expectations everyone needed and then help those who I could, like who needed help. I offered support when I could. The tricky part was with 29 kids, French not being their first language, and their French immersion situations, not your typical French immersion school situation. Their French, and COVID too really did a number. A lot of them didn't have devices at home. Yes, we shipped them out, but that didn't get out till the second year. So that first year we got off was the surprise to the whole world, right? We all remember, not coming back after March. What the heck? Yes. What's going on? It's only for 2 weeks. Yeah, that turned out not to be the case. So a lot of them, so they didn't have school. They didn't do French. They don't speak French at home. Their families aren't French because immersion is exactly that. It's French for English families.
Yeah.
And yeah, yes and no, right? But that's the basic simplicity thing for it, because otherwise you could go to French school, but then the communication from school to home is in French, and most of our families do not speak French, or at least in my class they don't. So yeah, that's kind of what I did. And so for other subjects like science, I had 4, 5, 6 science. I picked one, and so the 4s had never done the 4s, 5s, and 6s. My first year had never done the grade 4 curriculum of rocks and minerals.
Right.
I'm a rock collector. I have a huge collection of gems and precious stones and stuff at home. So I was like, we're doing rocks because Madame loves rocks. And I brought in my collection, and they got to hold all the citrine and the quartz and the rose quartz and the orange calcite, all the cool things that I have. They got to look at them and they're like, this is so cool. Where did you buy this? Right. So I picked a grade 4 unit. We did it together. Then I picked a grade 6 unit. We did electricity. Then the next year we did the human body, which is a grade 5 unit. So I pulled units that they've never done because of the unique situation of our class and did that. That's kind of, and my principals, like I said, they're really awesome, and they know that our situation, having 5 grades, is insane. Everyone knows it's insane. It is. It just is, and everyone knows it's crazy, and everyone's like, it's 2022 or 2023, and you have a 5-grade split. It's like a schoolhouse. I'm like, yes, I don't know what to tell you. It's just my job. I've been put there, and I'm gonna make the best of it, and they're gonna learn. But they have fun. They love, my class loves me. They love coming to school. I actually just got a letter from the other class, so like the 5 and 6s. The 4s I didn't teach, but they're a bunch of sweethearts too. They wrote me a really sweet letter about how awesome I am and how much they miss me and all the cool things we did together and what they love that we did together, like when we played Blickets together or when I played dodgeball against them and lost. Yeah, it was a good time. So I just had I had my kids, who are the 7, 8s, read that. I made a whole grammar work out of it. We did a petit travail, and I'm like, this letter, you guys are gonna read it. It's about how awesome I am. So feel lucky
That
that
you still have me.
that you. And they're like, they can't have you, madame. You're ours. I'm like, yeah.
So cute.
But it just made me feel good because I took a crazy situation, and I mean, they did learn curriculum. They did learn stuff, but really, I'm happy if they come to school happy, they're excited to learn, and I can help them in the future, like with the whole mindset thing, right? If I can help them build a new habit, that'll set them up for being lifelong learners.
There are so many things that I love about that. Just the tactical two things that I wanted to highlight that Jaime shared was the idea of having kind of like A-B years. You can't do it as much in when you have a 5 grade split, but the idea of like, instead of trying to teach everything, have like teach a little bit of this grade and then a little bit of that grade, and then you can switch it later if you use that in your department. And the other thing is like with language and classes, like subjects that lend themselves to this, usually like English, French, things like that, is teaching the one thing, but then have differing your expectations. And that's how you can differentiate more in your classroom in general, is like you teach the core thing and then you can teach more advanced or simpler or change the expectations from there, but you keep that core, and that's makes it a lot more manageable. So that was the two strategies that I wanted to share from what Jaime said. But the thing I really want to highlight about what you said was your outlook on a really challenging situation, because you changed your perspective. Like, yeah, your circumstances were really challenging, but you came at it from a different place, and that really changes how you actually experience the school day, which is the first. And the second is that you really keep in mind the big picture of what truly matters for those kids. So like, if you're in a situation where your students are from underprivileged backgrounds, like when we have high academic, like, when they have a lot of privilege and they're looking for academics, yes, maybe that's what matters. But you are looking at it like, what really matters for these kids is that they come to school, they feel safe at school, they enjoy school, and we start to shift their beliefs, because that can help them in the big picture real world. So it's not about having like the perfect lesson. It's more about having those safe relationships in that safe space. And that's going to make such a huge impact on their lives. Like, it's just such an amazing thing when you think about it.
I agree.
So good. So good. Well, is there anything else that you would add to call this episode complete, Jaime?
Let me check my notes. No, well,
She's got a plan.
I don't know. I'm not that organized.
But it's about being organized for you. It's not
for
about
me. I'm way more
organized
than it was. Even like if I had my partner, he's like, "Well, you're really like." I was even capable. Here, I'll share another thing. I was capable to take a fall session AQ course that felt easy. Yes, my class got switched to a lot smaller, and just 2 normal grades, but just the fact that, I mean, I'm not planning for hours at night anymore, so I do have the time to do some extra things like get higher in my pay category, because I waited too long to do that. So now I'm scrounging, trying to get it done as soon as possible. But I took a fall session for the first time ever, and it was a breeze, even with school starting up. We started the course in October and it just ended on November 30th. And I aced it, and I was okay with school. I'm ready for this week. We got a tournament on Thursday that I wasn't supposed to go, but the teacher who was going is off now. Now I have got to be the head. I am not a sports coach, so it's totally out of my comfort zone, but I did volunteer to help him out with coaching because I wanted to learn to do it. And now here I am being, the boss on Thursday. Got to take 13 boys to another school and play volleyball. grade 7 boys. So
That's
it's
awesome.
gonna be interesting, but I mean, I'm not worried. I'm not stressed out. I know what I can do. I put out what I can, and I'll fix what I need to as I go. I'm very flexible that way. I mean, I had to be because I had a 5-grade split. So,
which is a huge strength. Yeah.
Which
is a huge, and that I love too. Like, I know we like teachers don't often, talk about money, But I love when you can like have the time to pursue your master's, or we call it like a PB plus 15 in
Okay.
like in BC. Like when you have the extra time to be able to do that kind of stuff, it really makes a huge impact. Because my husband did it about 5 years ago, and like we still feel the effects of it. Like it really is a great investment when you can actually do that in your time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Jamie. It was so fantastic to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jamie.
Thank you.